This is called Purchase Offer Boot Camp. My philosophy, you are not going to make any money if you don't know how to fill out a purchase offer. Or if you're the listing agent and an offer comes in on your listing and you don't know how to read it or interpret it, you're gonna be in trouble. So it's kind of important to do this. My name is Karen Hilbert. I am not the OP Chuck Hilbert's wife. I am his sister. And he will let you know if you see him, that I am his older sister. He will get that in there. I have been in this business for 44 years. When were you
You must
before
have
here?
started young.
I was a nurse. I was. Oh, before Keller Williams? Hilbert Realty. We had Hilbert Realty for 19 years, and then I managed 2 Century 21 offices for 11 years. And before that, I was a nurse. Yeah, crazy stuff. So, family in the business. My dad was in the business, so my dad and I actually shared an office together for 28 years. Learned a lot of wisdom there. And he always said, if people ask you what about the interest rates, just watch the gas. If the gas goes up, 2 weeks later, the interest rates are going to start to climb. If the gas goes down. I've been watching gas for 44 years, and not that I like the high prices, but it's been kind of right. Anyways, we have been through a lot as far as many shifts. I commend you for going and getting your real estate license in this market. I'm sure you hear all the horror stories, but remember, the horror stories, along with that comes the good stories and the success stories. The success is based on hard work. I am a firm believer. You can have all the technology in the world. What that is time saving. You've got to establish relationships and meet people face to face. That is the most important skill that you can take with you, because it's very hard for someone to look at you and say, no, I don't want to work with you. Where the way people text, it's like, yeah, I moved on. What does that mean? I moved on. I just showed you 50 houses with 15 offers and you moved on. So anyways, I really believe that all of this is very, very important. Now, apparently we're recording this, so I can't say any bad words. And I have to figure this out, so bear with me. I am screen sharing. Great, so how do I get what I want up here? Does anybody know?
Do you have it on your computer?
You
You just pull it up. That's all you gotta do.
can share. Just go like this, just minimize that.
Mhm.
Right, that's what I'm gonna do. Let's see what happens.
Never seen what you see.
Amazing stuff. Okay, purchase offer checklist. This is what you have to fill out. And what you have in front of you, there's two groupings of paperwork. One is a blank grouping of paperwork, and that's for you to work on, fill out, write all over it. This is your example. Or I call it a cheat sheet. Fill it in, write anything you want on that piece of paper. The other one is the example of a purchase offer that was written and filled out on the computer. So you can do all this on the computer, guys. Yes, you can do it freehand and write it all out yourself. And I was a complete advocate of that until I went on vacation for 3 weeks and say, how am I going to do this if I don't have a printer and I don't have this and I don't have that? And then you force yourself to learn. So learn the right way. If you have not attended the matrix class at the board at GRAR, sign up for it. The Authentic Sign Instant class, sign up for it. Get in there and get that done. Now, this very first page, this is a fillable document, which means you'll find it on the KW Rock Resources. It's a very important site. All of your forms, everything you will ever need is in that KW Rock Resource website. I suggest you put a star next to that KW Rock Resource and take time reviewing it, just so you can find things more easily. There's everything in there. There's office procedures, there's codes for your copier, there's all kinds of stuff in there. Odd forms you might need, your YouTube videos. This recording will probably be in there at some point, unless I say too many naughty words, then I'll cut it out. I think it's a great resource. This checklist is in there. It'll be a fillable template, so you never ever have to print a piece of paper if you don't want to. Old school, I have everything printed on paper. It's me, I just do it. If you do not print it on paper, what you do need to do is have a complete contract for IRS purposes. So when you name your folder, name the address and say true copy of original. That way you can use a scanned copy of your contract if you're ever audited by the IRS. By law, we are supposed to keep all contracts for 7 years. It's our obligation as an agent, not the office, your obligation as an agent. So if you ever get audited and they say, I want to see this contract, now you have it. I just tend to put mine on my desktop in files that say close 2021, 2019, 78. I mean, they are back there, but it's the easiest way I found. Then I kind of take a whole file at the end of the year and anything I had in pending, sold, whatever happened that year, I just put it on a hard drive and save it.
So
Easy.
even though it's on command, we should still be doing.
Yeah, because who knows, what if all of a sudden command is gone? I would always,
That's not fun.
always, I know, you just never know.
Yeah,
What if we can't get on our computers? Well, we're in trouble anyways, because that's where everything is, it's all scanned in there anyhow, but you can at least say you did it. So this form needs to be filled out if you want to get paid. So most of your forms that you're gonna need or documents are listed on this. Here's your struggle. You're not gonna really know every single form you need for every purchase offer based on, is it a single family? Is it a mobile home? Is it a lot land farm? Is it commercial? Is it a multifamily? You need different forms for different properties. For financing, you need different forms for different financing. If it's FHA, you need certain forms. If you're waiving an inspection, you need forms. This is why you get assigned a mentor. Your mentor will help you through this. Another homework that I would say is very important is once you get to the class at the board for Authenticide and Instanet, write as many fake purchase offers as you possibly can. Go into the MLS, pick a property, go in and practice writing purchase offers on that property. Make yourself the buyer and send it to yourself to sign so you know what your buyers see when you send them a contract to sign. Also, it helps you skill-wise because you can explain the purchase offer better over the phone to them if you're not sitting face to face. Now, a lot of your communication, remember I said I'm big on communication with your people face to face. You are going to establish your value at your initial buyer consultation. And I am sure Jim talked to you about that this morning, right? And what you should have available for your buyer and then what you hold back from your buyer, because you don't want to give it all away and then have them go to Aunt Ruth's second marriage's son who got in the business 2 weeks ago as the realtor, right? You just gave them everything. So when I say you sit there with that buyer consultation, this is when you discuss the financing with them. The fact that they need a personal attorney, what you're going to be going through process-wise with the purchase offer, the timing, how long things take, who are they going to use for their attorney, who are they going to use for the engineer, are they going to want a radon inspection, a chimney inspection, do they want mom and dad to come and see every listing? What is their time frame? These are all questions that Jim covered on your buyer consultation. The reason you ask those questions and take notes is so that when you come to write this final purchase offer with them, it might not be the final, it might be one of many, but when you start with them, you know all the answers. Like, who's your attorney? If they say, oh, I don't know. Do you want to do a home inspection? Oh, I don't know. Do you want a home warranty? I don't know. Do you want a radon test? Oh, I don't know. You know what they don't know? They don't know if they should write an offer at that point because you haven't done your homework. You haven't had these discussions with this buyer. That brings you back to when you're showing the house. So you meet the buyers and you have this great initial buyer consultation. Now you go and you show them the first house. Let's not play HGTV guys at the house. That doesn't get you real far. Now is when you start showing your value. Hey, this house has a fireplace. Have you thought about if you want a chimney inspection? This house was built in 1827. Do you feel you want a home inspection on this house or a radon inspection? You're going for an FHA mortgage. We've got peeling and chipping paint. Do you feel you would want to ask the seller to fix that because the bank won't finance it this way? These are the conversations you have. How do you know this stuff? You learn it and you read it. Want another homework? Read, Google common FHA and VA appraisal repairs. Google it, look it up. So that when you're looking at this house, if you've got an FHA buyer, you know what you're looking for. Is the sidewalk cracked? Are there cracked windows? Are handrails missing? Because if there are, the bank is going to require those to be done. Another piece of homework. Reach out to loan officers, ask them for coffee. They might even take you to lunch. Talk to them. I'm a new agent. What do I need to know? What do I need to know about mortgages? Tell me about the different type of mortgages. Tell me about the grants that you have coming out. Are you hearing me? Are you seeing that this is a ton of independent work? Guys, you're not plugging in, you're not clocking in for a paycheck. So the effort you put in will be directly showed up as income to you. It's not a paycheck at the end of the week. I know that kind of stinks, especially when you first start, but all that knowledge is going to give you value and it's going to give you confidence. So great to ask agents, can I go to your open house? Even if you don't go to one of our own agents' open houses, go to open houses, see how they handle it, see what other agents do. Go to these classes, watch the YouTube videos, ask your mentor if you can sit with them or go with them when they show a house. Is all that comfortable for everybody? Does anybody have any questions about that? So let's look at this first page, purchase contract checklist. Obviously you need this. Your MLS printout you get out of Matrix. It's the printout you use when you are showing houses. The purchase contract, now there's different purchase contracts. If it's a mobile home, if it's a mobile home with land, if it's lot, land, or farm. Most work is done out of residential contracts, single family homes. By the way, if you're selling a commercial property, there is no commercial contract. It's called a letter of intent. And if you are going to be selling commercial property, I strongly urge you to reach out to Fallon or Kim or Jessica or your mentor and say, I need to know more about commercial. Because I won't even touch commercial. And I've been doing this 44 years. I refer it to our commercial people and say, good luck. Send me a 20 or 25% referral fee when you sell them something. Done. Because I don't know commercial and I don't want to know commercial. So stay within what you're comfortable doing. There's a lot of disclosures which you are going to go over with your buyers at the initial consultation. First and foremost, you're going to go over the agency disclosure. Are you sick of hearing that word? Agency disclosure. Does everybody understand it? Can I put it in very, very simple terms? There's an agent of the buyer, there's an agent of the seller. If it so happens that I meet a buyer and then 2 months later, I list a house that might fit that buyer, I had better have asked for advance consent for dual agency. That's dual agency. They're my buyer, they're my seller. Dual agency with designated sales agent. Think of what I was just a dual agency, 2 people in the same agency with designated sales agent. So Michelle may have the buyer and I may be the listing agent, the seller. That's a dual agent. All right. If you are writing an offer and it's a Keller Williams in the West office, and if it's a Keller Williams in Gateway, it is still dual agency because is same ownership for all three market centers. All right. Gateway, well, Weston, Brighton are all one now, but there are same owners for the market centers. All right. And actually Buffalo, now that I think about it.
You might. Listen.
Buffalo, yeah, because Chuck's an owner of Buffalo too. All right. New York State Fair Housing Discrimination, we're gonna go through each of these forms, but I just want to tell you so that it's the second time you hear these words, so they start to sound familiar to you, which is going to be the same thing you're doing to your buyers, right? You're going to talk to them about these forms at the initial consultation, and then you're going to get their signatures once you feel comfortable working together. I don't have them sign anything until I know I want to work with them. I hate to say it, because I'm not going through any more buyers that are calling me or emailing me at 5:30 in the morning or calling me at 5:30 in the morning and saying, I want to see it till 7:30. Not doing it, guys. Did my share of that. You've got to set boundaries just like you expect others. If you're emailing them at 5:30 in the morning, you can't get aggravated that they're emailing you back. So I probably draft 20 emails at 5:30 in the morning, but I don't hit send at least until 8, because I don't want to talk to them before then. And then after 8 o'clock at night, I don't want to talk to them. Unless they're in an offer situation. Nothing's that urgent. Now, if they want to email me and say they want to see a house at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, I've already forewarned them that might not happen. Just because you gotta be courteous to people. How would you like it if your house was for sale and you gotta call at 8:30 to show it the next morning? It could happen, but it's all about setting boundaries, being in control. Would you email your doctor at 5:30 in the morning and then call them and expect a response? Right? No. So you're in that same line. Just don't do it. Set boundaries. You're going to learn things about lead-based paint disclosure. What's the big deal with lead-based paint? I kind of summarize everything in about 2 sentences when I'm explaining things to people.
If it was built before 1978.
Correct. Any home built before 1978 has lead-based paint. Simple as that. Do you or don't you want a lead-based paint inspection? You know what they do for it? They chip off a piece of paint, they send it to the lab, they bill you $700 to $800 and say there's lead-based paint here. I'll tell you for $50. I don't need to minimize. It's very, very dangerous stuff, but your people need to know that they have the right to do an inspection. When you meet with them at the buyer consultation, give them a lead-based paint booklet. Make sure they read it. Now, if there's peeling and chipping paint on a house, now you know why FHA or VA required them to have it sanded, primed, and painted. Don't eat the paint. Don't let your kids eat the paint. Don't let your pets eat the paint. It's dangerous stuff. But even though it's been painted over and nice and neat, if the house was before 1978, it was the only kind of paint there was. So there's lead-based paint under there.
Isn't that essentially like if you pay for that inspection, that's what they'll tell you to do is encapsulate it by painting over it,
Yeah.
which is
That's
essentially.
what
what
I
most
tell
homes
you
already
that for
have done.
$25 more. And I'm being sarcastic. I'm sorry. This is a lot of information at once, but when you explain it to people, they get terrified. Like what happens? But if you've given them the lead-based paint booklet, it's called Protect Your Family Against Lead-Based Paint. It's on the KW Rock site. You can email it to them. Then they understand. In my years of business, I had one person ask for it, and when they found out how much it cost, they canceled the inspection. One person, 44 years of writing contracts. Now, some of the properties, when you buy a city-owned grant property, some of them require a lead-based paint risk assessment, but then they also pay for it. Everybody got that? Good. Property inspection. Oh, we hear a lot about this right now. Never, ever, ever tell your people not to do an inspection. They want to do an inspection, do an inspection. You can tell them it's highly unlikely in a multiple offer situation that if you ask for a home inspection, your offer will not be chosen. You can tell them that because it's the truth. but they have to do what they're comfortable with. You can also ask the listing agent if you can bring an inspector in before the offers are due, and your buyer can pay for a mini home inspection to be completed before they put a purchase on. There are firms that do that. Removal of contingencies, all of these items are up to you. So when you write a purchase offer, it's gonna be full of dates, full of dates. First is get the deposit in within 48 hours. That's a date. Second thing is buyers and sellers attorney approval within 3 days. Those are dates. Buyer immediately gets to the bank and has a mortgage in 3 weeks. That's a date. Buyer does a home inspection. They have to remove that home inspection within 5 days. That's a date. These are dates you have to keep. You have to keep. You can lose a contract over missing a date, because I guarantee you with the way the prices are skyrocketing, those sellers are sitting back and say, I probably could get 10,000 more right now. If my deal falls apart and they're telling their listing agent, buyer have their mortgage on time. You as a listing agent, me as a listing agent, if you sell my listings, I'm all over you. I'm all over you 2 or 3 days before that mortgage is due. Hey, does your buyer have their mortgage? Hey, is the appraisal done? These are things that are up to you. Anything that says contingency, anything under contingency in the column on the purchase offer is your responsibility to take care of. Not the attorneys, not the loan officers. Well, I shouldn't say that. The loan officers have to gather the information for the mortgage, but it's your job to make sure that those dates are met and those items are removed in writing to the seller on the dates before or when they're due. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm jumping all over the place. Any other addendums, like if there is a well or septic, I strongly urge you never to encourage your buyers to not do a well or septic inspection. And with the well, there's something called potability. That means you can drink it, and volume. That means it replenishes itself. So you would hate to sell a house to a family of 6 and then be able to do 1 load of wash a day, right? Because the well didn't fill up. Or you would hate to find out that the septic tank is rated for a 2-bedroom and they put an addition on and it's a 6-bedroom house and they have to pump the tank every 6 months. All right. Removal of well, addendum for electric utilities. I'll explain that when we get to it. Disclosure for Wayne County. Any house you sell has a separate property disclosure if the property is located within Wayne County, which is just on the other side of Webster. There's the property condition disclosure, which is required for all properties within limitations of when it's not applicable. And that form is in here. In Wayne County, they have an additional form that you do have to fill out, in as well as the property condition disclosure, which is also known as the PCD, because of Ginna nuclear plant. They added something in there about noxious and toxic gases. Well, if nuclear plant blows, you know, you're really not going to care about a disclosure, but you have to let people know it's there. I went to Niagara University for school, and at orientation, they sat there and they go, you understand we're right next to Whirlpool Park, which is the most highly likely place for anybody to bomb if they were ever to bomb the US. Oh, I'm so glad I came here. Right? And I'm so glad we got stadiums full of nurses at this place so they can take care of everybody. Bombed. You know, the things they tell you after you sign on the line. Anyways.
I worked in Wayne County and my employer was obligated to provide us with the option to get the iodine shot.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because apparently
it's supposed to help.
It's supposed to reduce the amount of radiation your body will absorb if you are, and I'm like, we're like 5 miles away.
Sorry.
Reducing it.
Oh, maybe that's not gonna help me from my skin peeling off. Sorry. I want to be alive at that point, guys. Just throw me in the incinerator. I'm so done.
Radiation, but I died from my skin coming.
Oh my God. Oh, they're recording this.
Oh, yeah.
See, I'm gonna get fired. Which is really.
Good thing you don't know.
Maybe that's a good thing. Alright, anyways. Disclosure for Wayne County, we covered that pretty well too. Sale and transfer of title contingency. Please write next to this, get help. Get help, get help, get help. This means that your buyer has a home to sell before they can purchase. And the dates that you fill in on this additional form are critical. You must give the buyer plenty of time to sell their home. Have your buyer's buyer get a mortgage, your buyer get a mortgage, and to have everybody coincide their closings. And it's not as hard as it sounds, but the form can be daunting. So, you always give the buyer 30 days to sell their house. And then an additional 60 days to close is what it amounts to. So our standard closing is usually 45 to 60 days. If somebody has a house to sell and the house is not on the market, we give them an extra 30 days. This is an old school time. Nowadays, the houses are selling in 5 to 10 days. So you could probably tighten that up and make it 70 to 75 days. But who knows? You just don't know. In today's market, a buyer being contingent, I don't even show them houses unless we're 30 to 45 days after delayed negotiations, because they don't stand a chance getting an offer accepted. Hate to say it, but that's the facts. I thought after the new year that things would lighten up. I think it's crazier than ever. So your buyers have to sharpen their skills, meaning the number of offers on houses. Last week there was one in Gates, 2 days ago, 34 offers on a 139.9 house, over 100 showings. I had a house in Irondequoit 3 weeks ago, 91 showings, 24 offers.
Do you think that's just because
I think because
Buyers
there's nothing.
their sellers don't want to list
There's-
since January?
I just think this has been going on for so long and there's just not enough houses. And sellers don't want to list because they don't know where they're gonna end up because anything they like is gone in days. So it's really a vicious cycle
But why is it escalating in January?
because there haven't been any houses for 3 years. And it's just kind of building up. And I think there's a lot of buyers who are scared because the interest rates are bopping. Our days of 3 and 4% are long gone, guys. They're gone. We're not gonna see those. So any buyer that says, I'm gonna wait, say, okay, wait, and watch the houses go up and then it'll make up the difference with the interest rate. I wish I had a crystal ball to answer that question. I don't. I really thought that we'd start to see more houses, and I'm seeing more come on the market. But your buyers you just have to be honest with them. If you can afford 200, don't look at anything over 175. I hate to say that. It is what it is. Seller's notice for buyer to remove their contingency. So if you write a sale and transfer title contingency contract, it can get bumped. They can lose that house because the seller is still holding it. Like, why would I keep my house off the market while your house is unsold? I'm gonna keep showing it to other people. And if I get another offer, I'll let you know you have 3 days to remove your contingency. That's why it's kind of hard to accept a contingent offer. Notice to preserve buyer's transfer of title. Once your buyer sells their contingent house and everybody gets their mortgage, you can remove that bump clause so they can no longer be bumped. So you're protecting everybody. Don't do any of that without your attorney's okay. Make sure your attorney gets involved. Also, if you can't get a hold of, your mentor or an ALC member, I'm kind of that person who answers contract questions. So that's my phone number. Right. Yeah. I don't call myself. I'm not going to sit down and help you write a whole contract because you've got a mentor to do that and you should be more prepared. Like if you're showing houses this weekend, you should be practicing right now, writing your purchase offers. But I will answer questions like if you call me and say, Karen, this house has this type of furnaces or this, the agent says that a baseboard heater is gonna be replaced. How should I word it in the contract? Those are the kind of questions that I will answer for you. And it would be smart if you all text me your name, put it in format so I can just save you as a contact, your first name, your last name, and your phone number, so that when you call me, I answer the phone, because I put you in as a KW agent. If I don't know who's calling me, I don't answer my phone. I let it go to voicemail, because I would be interrupted all day long. Is that fair? Cool. Residential rented property, there's a Schedule A that's supposed to be under the little paper clip that is the attachment on your MLS printout that discloses on a rental property, how much are the rents, how long is the lease, what's included as far as utilities, do they snowplow, does the tenant or landlord own the appliances, is there a security deposit? All this is very valuable information. If you are writing a multifamily property and you don't have this, make it part of the purchase offer, or get it before you show the house, because it can be a waste of time. Where before, in the old days, they just used to put rents $1,000, $1,000. Then your buyer closes and they get a check for $600 from the tenant. They're like, the rent's 1,000. Oh, no, it isn't. Here's my lease. It was 600. Oh, so you call the listing agent. Well, that was the projected rent. Oh, okay. Now we have documentation. So cover yourself on that. Always have to have an earnest money deposit. It is your obligation to pick it up or to make sure it gets to the listing office. So whoever has the listing holds the good faith deposit, not our company. If you're the listing office, you hold the good faith deposit at Lions National Bank, also known as LNB. That is our escrow company, just in case you list houses. It's at LNB. So you'll see it right on the MLS printout, which you have in front of you. If you go down to the second page of that MLS printout, yeah, right on the back there. And I'm just going to point to where it is, where you can find it, because most of them, here it is, right in this area. Most of them automatically put it in the MLS, who the escrow company is. And this one happens to be, the escrow agent is Hunt at ERA, and the money is at M&T Bank. So Hunt ERA is a listing office. It's being, the escrow check is being put into M&T Bank towards the buyer's purchase for closing. That's what that money is.
Buyer would bring it to the front office.
Buyer could bring it to the Hunt office, or you pick it up and bring it to the Hunt office. I always give my buyer specific instructions. Write the check, make a copy of the check, send me a copy of the check. If you can't get it to the listing office, I will pick it up and bring it there. 9 times out of 10, they bring it for me.
Do you prefer personal checks over bank checks?
Yep, personal
yeah.
check is fine.
Fine,
No, personal check. Well, with the bank check, it's not gonna bounce.
yeah.
But I tell my people, give me a check that's not good, you're gonna lose a house. Simple as that. They say, oh, it takes 4 days. No, it doesn't. 1 day. 1 day it takes to transfer money. Unless you're transferring millions. I don't know how many.
They do a
zeros
wire
there.
transfer.
Yeah, right. They can do a wire transfer too. That's another thing. You can do a wire transfer. Then you don't have to pick anything. So think about people who buy things, they're out of state. Obviously, they do a wire transfer. So if it's your listing and you need information on wire transfer, guess where you can find it? EW Rock Resources. It's there. All the information you need. Next. This is our franchise disclosure. Every single property you write an offer on, you have to disclose to your buyer the same information. You have to treat every single buyer the same. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. We do not tolerate any ifs, ands, or buts about that. So every single buyer gets offered a home warranty. Who's our home warranty company? I don't know, it's American Shield or something. Guess where you can find that information? You got it. KW Rock Resources. So you must ask each buyer, do they or do they not want a home warranty on that particular property? Also, this doesn't really apply, but it's for the sellers. They're authorizing their attorney to allow their attorney to pay the commission to the real estate office at closing. Second form that, and as an agent, you have to sign this form. So your buyers have to sign this. The property they're buying has to be signed, their phone number, their email address. The next form is we must disclose that there is ownership in Elmwood Agency, which is an insurance company with the Keller Williams office. Anything okay out there? All right. I kind of lightly brush over this. Now, you know, what happens is somebody from Elmwood Agency emails or calls your buyers that, are you interested in a quote for home insurance? It's kind of a pain in the neck, but I saved a little bit over $400 a year by switching to them, so it might be worth investigating. What does this form look like? Agency disclosure. See where it's no agent? Does anybody have a question about this at all? So it's your buyer, right? You're going to fill in your name, your company. Then you are an agent, you check mark the seller as a seller's agent, 2 check marks, here and here. Excuse me, but you're a buyer's agent, right? Sorry, buyer's agent. Broker's agent, there's no such thing around here. That's New York City, but these forms are used right across the state. Advanced informed consent. So when I first meet them, I get advanced informed consent for dual agency and dual agency with a designated sales agent. Because with over 500 agents at Keller Williams, it's highly likely you will be showing them another Keller Williams listing. So you want to get permission. Now people say, oh, I don't know if I'm comfortable. If you're the listing agent and you're representing me as a buyer, that's fine. I'll bring someone else in to help write the offer. That's fine if you're not comfortable. Next. Anti-housing discrimination, your buyers have to sign this. Now, when you start this transaction in AuthentiSign, and you put your buyer in as a participant, this is automatically opt out. That's when I fell in love with it. It's like, oh, I don't even have to type this. So that's why, what is important? Their pre-qual letter is important because you know exactly how they're going to take title. Do they use a middle initial? Do they use a full middle name? It's always on the pre-approval letter exactly what their legal name is. And that's how they should take title. Things that can get confusing are both parties. You're showing partners of property. Are both parties on the contract? What does the pre-qual letter say? The pre-qual letter should match the contract. If it doesn't, and I'm the listing agent, I'm going to question you. Like, why are there 2 names on the pre-qual letter and 1 on the contract? We need both, because I'm assuming that both people's income are needed to afford it. That makes sense? These are all things you have to check on, guys. Buyer agency contract, I know you went over there with Jim. I'm not going to go over it with you. The only thing I can say about this is it's great to have a buyer's agency contract. It's not great if you don't get along with the buyers. Sometimes when I meet buyers, I tell them the information and I say, after we look at the first couple of houses, we'll make a decision if we can work together. Is that fair? Because sometimes it's just like not a good personality fit. Can you see how that could happen? Now, you could refer them to another agent in your office, phone a friend. That might be a better fit, or even if you're scheduled, if you're an agent who right now is transitioning from a full-time job to a part-time job, and the only time your buyer is available is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and there's no way you can do it, refer it. Don't lose the business altogether, refer it. Right? When I started in this, I was a nurse and I was working like some nuts hours. So it was like, oh God, when can I show houses? Well, I had to work it in between. when I had shifts at the hospital, it was not easy. That's why it would have been great, to have help, which I did. I had my dad helping me, but it was really a challenge. Also, it's kind of nice to get someone that you work along with, because you can actually maybe take a weekend off. Or maybe go on a family vacation. Wouldn't that be nice? And not have to worry about your buyers calling you at 8 in the morning. All right. So what I want to do is basically, I want you to circle the items on this purchase offer that you are going to have to fill in yourself. So does everybody have the blank contract in front of them? It starts with purchase and sale of residential property. You showed it right? Yeah. See that? So when you download this copy, there should be, do you have another one that starts with, let me see, another packet neighborhood?
Yeah.
Right here. Let's go. Purchase offer here. Yes, there is. So along with this, you've got another copy here that's starting to be filled out. Do you see that? It started to go through your packet. The first page of it says addendum form to purchase and sale contract. In there, you're going to see another addendum. Do you have-
I gave mine to her because I've been doing stuff with Jenna.
Okay,
So, I mean,
you got it.
I don't, but I'm listening and I'm watching. I'm gonna copy hers when she's done.
Okay,
She's gonna take the notes. She's gonna take the notes and I'll copy hers.
Okay. all right. You're Sharon, I like that lady. Good girl. So get this out. All right, so you're gonna somewhat see what the blank purchase offer, here's page 1, right? So they should, you got everything in order, I didn't want to switch off here. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, does everybody have what we need? Let's see, yes, you do. You got it. You got it, let's see. Perfect. Perfect. Got it. You guys are pretty neat. You got it all? Where's your building one? You're almost amazing. You're pretty close. You're pretty very close. Here it is. That's the package we're gonna be using. There you go. There you go. See where it's the exact same forms except one filled out, one not. All right. So when you do this for design, the seller's names are already in there, so it's gonna automatically populate. You can add your buyer as a participant, then their name will automatically populate. So as much information that you have about your buyer, like your buyer's attorney, you can put that in there. Obviously you're in there, it'll automatically populate because you're writing the offer. So all of that works well if you have the information. So the 2 in the from is already going to be populated. Can you see that on your form? See it? I think your buyer's David Olszewski, right?
Yeah.
That's my husband. Just so you know. The property is zoned, or next number 1A, real property known as, that will automate, the address will automatically populate. Could you please circle right here, these 3 boxes where it says town, city, village, please circle that on your copy. That is not filled in, so you have to choose. Is it in the town, is it in the city, or is it a village? As soon as you see the word village, red flag, you need to make sure that there's village taxes are noted in the MLS printout. Because some towns have village taxes and some don't. Rockport is a village inside the town of Sweden. Rockport village taxes are an additional $900 to $1,200 a home per year. What will that do to someone's mortgage payment if you don't know there's a village tax? It should be in the MLS printout, but sometimes it's not. So kind of, when you're looking at these houses, if you don't know if it's in a village or not, look at some of the other homes that have sold on the street and check the MLS printouts to see if it says village. Now, of course, if the MLS printout already has the taxes filled in for village, then there's a village tax. But so example, there's the town of Parma. Hilton is the village inside Parma. they have a village tax. Hamlin is a village, but there's no village tax. Scottsville is a village inside Wheatland, and there's a village tax. Webster has a village, but there's no village tax. Penfield has a village, there's no village tax. Barrington has the village of Fairport. Fairport has a village tax.
And all that should be on the MLS, correct?
They don't come out and tell you, but it's in the
It's
MLS
listed,
printout. It's
yeah.
listed as town and county, school, and then village taxes. There's a copy of a printout somewhere
Yeah.
there. It's on the second page. The bottom right is where the taxes are listed. You see what the options they give you?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, so circle that. The zip code is filled in, the tax count number is filled in. Single family dwelling, circle lot size, that is not filled in. Circle description of buildings on property, that is not filled in. What do you fill in there? The lot size is on the MLS printout, it is on the top right of the first page. If it's got acreage, it might not have a lot size, but it might say like 0.42. So you can fill that in like approximately 4.42 of an acre if it doesn't have dimensions. Description of buildings on property, please underline the word buildings, buildings. All that they want to know about. Single family dwelling with attached garage, single family dwelling with detached garage and shed. Single family dwelling with barn. They don't care that it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath split level, none of that. Building, that's all they care about, building. The reason I tell you this stuff is because attorneys get into like, why did you write split level? I go, I don't know, I felt like it. Whatever. That's how I was taught. Well, it's wrong. Okay. I won't do it again. Next, B, other items included in the price. You're going to find, and here's where and please write next to the speak with loan officer. Ask your loan officer if they want the personal property on the purchase offer or on a separate personal property agreement. I always tell my agents, ask the loan officer how they prefer. Now, most loan officers, if it's an FHA or VA transaction, they want it on a separate addendum. Because the banks don't want to finance refrigerator, stove, washer, dryer over 30 years. Makes sense to me, right? They don't want, and never ever like on the purchase offer, don't include the John Deere tractor or the 42-foot motorboat. I just really don't want to see that stuff for sure. So,
Neither do the attorneys though either.
no, the
That's not-
attorneys, well, yeah.
Well,
this
they
is-
can't be on the personal property addendum because it's not part of the house.
Right, and the attorneys are 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Some of them are like, yeah, I don't care if I see the personal property agreement. Others are like, yeah, I don't want to see it. So I send it to them. If they say, I don't want to see this, I'll say, take it out of your package. Throw it away.
For the loan officer.
Well,
that's the
right.
difference.
Right. You send me another package? No, I don't know how to take that page out. Whatever. I really don't. I know you should know. Please learn how to split documents. It's one thing I haven't learned how to do. I just don't know how to do it. Maria, do you know how to do it?
I do. I
Right,
put
you
everything.
teach me sometime,
Sure.
not soon, but.
It's really easy.
I'm sure everybody always says that.
Well, anyone can do it because teachers do it all the time.
I use dot code.
But there's another program I have to learn.
Yeah, that's
Done. We'll do lunch, no. Items excluded. Anything that is written in the MLS printout, such as dining room light fixture, or playhouse in the backyard, or that little machine that vacuums up the pools, that's like $1,000, whatever it would be called those things.
cool.
It's a waterproof robot.
Yeah.
I call it. Make sure you know what's included. So these give you great reasons to call the listing agent if you're writing a purchase offer. Oh, I know that there's an in-ground pool and it's covered, but can you tell me what equipment is included? Do they have one of those little vacuum cleaners that runs around the bottom of the pool? Or, you know, these are the things, do they have a cover? Do they have a solar cover? Do they have a winter cover? What kind of cover is it? These are all questions you can ask. The big things that we always ask The brackets for the TVs are supposed to stay, but the TV itself doesn't. So rule of thumb, screwed in stays. If it's screwed into a wall, it stays. Cameras, technically. Okay, you wanna split hairs on this one? I know that I saw your face. So like you hook the camera on a little bracket. Does the camera stay or doesn't the camera stay? It's the listing agent. Clarify it. You don't want to get to your final walkthrough before closing and go in and see holes in the walls like fist size because they took the TV brackets. You don't want to see the play yard in the back that looks like a house cut down at the grass level because they picked it up and moved it, and your kids are now crying because the slide is gone. I mean, you want to be prepared with this stuff. I'm kind of making light of it because at this point, I've been talking for an hour, I'm sick of my own voice, but I think it's important. These are important questions, so don't try not to make light of it. Ask the agent these questions. Is there anything I need to exclude that you're aware of? What about the ring your doorbell? And here's another thing, people. If you're doing a walkthrough with your buyer and you know ahead of time there's a ring your doorbell, and I put it right on my MLS printout, make sure that the seller has taken it off their phone for closing, because try to get a hold of these sellers sometimes after closing and unprogram or deprogram, whatever the right word is, those ring your doorbells. It's like, you gotta be a whatever engineer to do it. It's very hard. If someone has it all plugged into their phone and they're gone and they're not cooperating, it's hard to get rid of those. You might as well just throw it out and go buy a new one. It's all about servicing your client, right? Are you hearing that loud and clear? Making sure everything is loud and clear. Seller represents that everything, you have to fill this in, is in good working order. See where it says except for? Write in no exceptions, no exceptions. The difference there is if you're buying a house in as is condition, this is where you would expect that the furnace is working, right? You expect that the hot water tank is working, but do you really know? So if I'm selling a flip or a foreclosed property, I am making sure it doesn't say except for no exceptions. I'm crossing out except for, I'm saying as is condition. Something as simple as that, if you're in competition with other offers, can make you lose the offer, make you lose the contract for your buyer. Purchase price. This is where you fill in the price here. When I am using an escalation clause, when I get into the format at the end where I can add language to this actual contract. And I know there's a way to add language when you're filling it out. I just don't know how to do it. I put in parentheses and highlighted right above the purchase price, the escalation clause addendum. I write it right on the purchase offer above the price. I don't want them to miss my escalation addendum. Deposit. So you have to check, never accept cash. I don't even know why that's on there. FYI, never, ever, ever, ever accept cash. The attorneys wrote this contract, that's why it's on there. Personal check or official base check. You can, or a wire transfer, you see that's on there now. So you can prepare your buyer with a wire transfer and tell them they can transfer the money into the escrow account. Now, some real estate companies do not want wire transfers. They're not set up for it. Simple, so you can't promise your buyer that that's gonna be an acceptable means of the deposit. Deposits.
Again, something you'd ask the listing agent? Like, when you're on the phone with them?
I do. If I'm writing an offer, I ask them if their company accepts wire deposit. It gives me another reason to talk to them.
Sometimes the attorney's office will accept. the
We'll
letter,
accept it for them, yes,
And then you have to have them write a check to the listing agent to.
and make it more difficult. I know. In that case, I tell them, FedEx overnight, a personal check or a bank check. Because it just gets too crazy. This happens on a Friday, the attorneys are closed. The last thing they want to hear on Monday morning is they have to go to their bank and wire transfer money. They don't like that. Deposits, how much? The more the merrier. I always said to myself, I'm gonna take as much money as I can from them so they can't spend it. And not have enough money for closing. But that became unheard of, and now it's back. Now it's like you're writing a $200,000 purchase offer, it's not unusual to see a $10, $15, $20,000 deposit. A lot of money. Seller's concession. When you meet with your loan officer, they are going to talk to you about what our seller's concession and how much it's gonna be and how likely in this market will it be for a seller to pay for your buyer's closing costs, which are another word for, so seller concession is another word for buyer's closing costs. Deposit. This very clearly states the buyer has delivered or will deliver within 2 calendar days of acceptance. You have to circle this, please, because you do have to fill this in. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Put a question mark next to it. If the information is filled in on the MLS printout, it will automatically populate like Chad, right?
Yeah.
Like I said on Chad's, that it was with Hunt at M&T Bank. Was it Hunt at M&T Bank? Is where the deposit went. What does the Deerfield printout say?
Doesn't always auto-populate because
It doesn't
when I
always-
wrote yesterday with M&T Bank and it didn't,
It did not automatically
Yeah, I
populate.
had to-
Yeah, I don't know why it does sometimes.
it brought in the agency, but
It did,
Yeah.
but it didn't bring in the bank or the, yeah, see, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Okay. Seller concessions, it explains what they are. I'm not gonna read this whole contract to you. Guess what? Your independent contractors agree. Read it yourself. If you don't understand it, highlight it, highlight it, highlight it. And go to your mentor and ask, what does this mean? You can absolutely ask me right now if there are items on here that you don't know what they mean. I'll explain them to you to the best of my knowledge. Transfer tax, recording costs, mortgage tax. The attorneys take care of all of this in closing adjustments. One thing that I do want to bring up to you is if the property is on propane or oil, there will be an adjustment at closing. Your buyer needs to be prepared to reimburse the seller however much propane or oil is left in the tanks. So if your buyer is very, very tight on cash, you have to cover that in the purchase offer. Meaning the buyer will only reimburse the seller up to $250 as reimbursement for fuel oil or natural gas propane. A lot to think about, huh? Not HGTV. The closing costs, the adjustment, the attorney does all the adjustments at closing. They figure out how many days are left in the year, what taxes have been prepaid. So if someone just pays their county taxes, which are due right now, and they pay in full for the year, and it's $1,200 a year for the county taxes, and your buyer closes in March, they're gonna get back April through December. The seller's going to, but these are the adjustments that the attorney does. Don't you try to do them. Just explain to your buyer, you need a year's taxes up front and a year's homeowner's insurance, and that will cover what you need. You may need an extra 2 months of prepayables, which is 2 months of mortgage payments. And that will also help cover what you need. But the loan officer is going to explain all this to you. They're not only going to talk to you about mortgages, they're going to talk to you about the 3 sources that you need money for when your buyer buys a house. First is the down payment. 5% down, 0% down, 20% down. Next is closing costs. Closing costs are money that just goes to the bank. Those are things like application fee, appraisal fee, mortgage tax, bank attorney fees, processing fees. I call them junk fees. It's all how the bank makes money. The third grouping of money is prepayables. Money that's owed up front. A year's taxes, a year's homeowner's insurance, personal attorney fees and inspection fees. They cover it all. So there's 3 sources of money. When people say, oh, I saved up my down payment, I got 5%. I'm like, oh, now we need another how much? right? We need closing costs to the bank and we need a year's taxes and homeowners insurance. That's why you bring the loan officer and let them be the bearer of bad news to your buyer, not you. Plus, they might have a grant where the buyer doesn't need all that money. Or they give them sources like, can your parents give you a gift? Are you getting a income tax return? Et cetera, et cetera. There's always, when somebody wants to buy a house, there's a way to figure it out. Contingencies, remember I said all those contingencies, you gotta figure out what dates are. Here's where the dates begin. We already passed one date. Did we do the attorney approval yet? No, okay. The one date that we already have is the good faith deposit. We have to make sure that good faith deposit is in within 2 days. Next, the mortgage financing, you check. A 1, 2, or 3. It's gotta be one of those 3. Now, your mortgage commitment, this is where you have your pre-qual letter, and it's gonna tell you everything you need to know. On that pre-qual letter, is it a conventional mortgage? Is it an FHA mortgage? Is it a VA mortgage? What is the interest rate? If it doesn't say what the interest rate is on that commitment, call the loan rep. Now, we know the interest rates are bopping around, right? Let's say your interest rate on your commitment says 6%, and we know today they're 7.5. You need to get another pre-qual letter. Because me, if I'm the listing agent and I'm reading it, I go, oh, they don't qualify. The interest rate is 7.5 and this says 6. So you need to be sharp and pay attention to those pre-qual letters. Also, I asked them the other question. Let's say the rates today are 6, but we know they're bouncing around. Do you still want to buy the house if the rates are 6.5? Yep. If the rates are 6 3/4, yep. If the rates are 7, yep. If the rates are 7 1/4, no. So what do you fill in there? Rates not to exceed right here, 7%. So circle that. You have to fill in everything on this whole mortgage contingency. Oh, sorry, I skipped above that. Your loan commitment, it will tell you on there how much money your buyer's putting down. So if it says if it's a 20% conventional loan, right here, 20% means the mortgage isn't going to exceed 80% of the purchase price. If it's a 3% down mortgage, it doesn't exceed 97% of the purchase price. This is pure arithmetic. Interest rate not to exceed 7% for a term of most likely 30 years. The buyer will immediately apply for their loan and have until. Give it at least 3 to 4 weeks because the appraisal has to be back. They can get you a mortgage commitment. The loan officer say, oh, I can have you a mortgage commitment in 14 days. Will you have the appraisal back? Well, I don't know. Well, our purchase offer says that the appraisal has to be back and completed to be a full-blown mortgage commitment. So I don't lie on my purchase offers. I say that I need 3 to 4 weeks to get a full-blown mortgage commitment. What is this little box here for? This has to do with bank repairs. Remember, we mentioned that the bank appraiser is going to come out and take a look at the house, and they're going to make sure there's no cracked windows or railings are missing or peeling paint. If that is the case, you've done your homework and Googled common FHA and VA repairs that appraisers would ask for, and you're going to say, oh, this house is missing handrails. And each handrail is about $150. So I'm going to put in here $300 for repairs. Now you're the hero. Because when the bank appraiser comes out and says it needs handrails, the seller is going to go to Home Depot and get them for $38. But you put in there $300 so that the deal doesn't die. Because if you put 0 and they come back with a list of repairs, the seller can say, I'm done, cancel the contract. As a buyer, wouldn't you be angry? Think of all these things we're talking about that your realtor could screw up for you. I'm not talking initially. I'm talking about later down the line. How would you like a phone call? Oh, your contract just got canceled. Why? Because you didn't remove your mortgage contingency in writing. Everybody knew you got one, but you didn't remove it. Wouldn't you be angry at your realtor? I'd be calling my realtor and say, you better have a move over because I'm moving in your house, because I have no place to live. You've got a big responsibility here. You are dealing with someone's most important investment, most likely of their whole life. Their whole life. Take it seriously. Put something in for it. Cash transaction, number 2. If your buyer is all cash, I tell them when they come to me, say I'm all cash. I want to believe that they have all cash, but I also let them know that they have to show proof of funds with the purchase offer, or their offer will not be considered. So please send to me a copy of your proof of funds right now. Cross out your account number. When it comes time for an offer, I will be asking you to update it. Okay, guys, guess what? We all know that money can be in their account today and be taken out tomorrow. Do we not know that? Yes, but that's not acting in good faith. So then the attorneys get involved,
So basically, they're just sending you a bank statement.
Yeah.
Okay.
or their financial advisor is sending a statement, or they go to their bank and say, Karen Hilbert has $27 million in the bank and can buy Brad Pitt's mansion. Right? So, you know, that it, you can have it anyway, but it has to be legitimate. Immediately, read that clause, immediately available US funds. Immediately available, not someone's 401k. It's not immediately available, is it? That's why you want a financial advisor to write the letter, even if it's coming from the 401k. US citizen, I had a Canadian gentleman, wonderful gentleman, went to go buy a house. He didn't have US funds. The attorney killed the deal. He said, does your buyer understand the difference in the cash? I said, yeah, he does. So then what we had to do is get his cash out of Canada and put it in bank here for the next house, but the attorney killed the first deal.
Do the same thing with a 401k. Like if somebody came to me and said, I want to take money out of my 401k and put it down as a cash offer, do that now, have it sitting in the bank.
I don't have my clients do that because who knows when they're gonna find a house, and some 401ks are great. Like you can take that money out and not have a penalty for a year, and they may decide, well, they want to refinance it after they close. They want to be strong, so they write a cash offer and they use their 401k money, but they really want to finance the house. So after they close, they refinance the house and reimburse their 401k account. So people do a lot of crazy things.
Is that the cash guarantee that the banks offer?
That's different. The cash guarantee means you can go to Premium or GRV are the banks that I'm aware of, but your buyer goes to these banks and they have to have a minimum of 20% down. They have to have great credit and the house has to be reasonable. So when the banks are writing a cash guarantee approval, it is subject to them attaching it to a particular home. So I call my loan rep at Premium, who's Lisa Roberts, and I say, listen, my buyers want to put an offer in on 7 Ashton Villa in Chili. And I need a cash guarantee. She goes, how much do you want to go up to? And I told her, she goes, okay, let me get back to you. So what they do is they bring my number to their appraiser and say, can we give a cash guarantee to Karen's clients, so-and-so, which they've already done the pre-approval. We give them a cash guarantee for this amount of money, and they might say, no, we're not going that high, go 10,000 less and we'll get the cash guarantee. Like on an escalation clause. This is what you talk to your loan reps about. I could be here all day talking about mortgages and they're all going to change tomorrow because I'm not the professional on loans. Purchase offer, I could probably be driving with my grandchildren in the back screaming for Cheerios and still tell you how to fill out a purchase offer. Right? So these are something like the 401k. Some people take it out and say, this is what I'm going to use it for anyway, so I don't care. A lot of people, gosh, parents are cashing in their 401k so their kids can get a house. I know. My parents are. You're on your own, kiddo. Additional financing terms. This could be where you fill in something like subject to getting a home equity loan or subject to getting a gift letter from the parents Or, this could be anything. Letter B, sale and transfer of title. What did I say about this one?
Get help.
Get help. Right next to it, get help. C, inspection of property. If your buyer elects to waive their home inspection, you don't need to check this box, but please write underneath it, they do need a Keller Williams waiver of inspection. And if the property has a well or septic, I prefer that they get a waiver for that also. It's not a rule, but when I'm looking at contracts and I see that they didn't get a waiver for this, I kind of cringe because I think that they should have one. But that's me. Letter D. Building code compliance, also known as CFCs. What we call them around here are permits. The way this paragraph is worded is extremely poor. This is putting responsibility on the seller. Any permits that are needed or they have are submitted to the buyer's attorney within 10 days of the acceptance of offer. Quite frankly, nobody pays attention to this and they never get them there on time, even if it's checked. But we're also finding in the multiple offer situation that buyers are just saying, I don't care if they're permits. I don't care. I would care if there wasn't a permit for a swimming pool, like an in-ground pool, then I'd be concerned. But as far as everything else, like what if there's a gazebo? If there's an addition to the house and it looks like a brand new addition on your tax record, which is in Realist it's on your dashboard. And there's a spot that says Realist in the MLS. You can look at the tax record and there's a little box that says features. Oftentimes the permits are noted in that little box under features. Other contingencies. I'm seeing agents put in there seller to provide permits presently on file with the town. Okay, that's great, wonderful. At closing. Fine, nobody's balked me on that. Attorney approval is always within 3 days. You have to fill this in 3 days. Now we're going to get into disclosures. Number 5, A. Seller's property condition disclosure. See right here, PCD. We call it a PCD, property condition disclosure. There are times when it's not applicable, and there is a copy of that in this packet. Or you can look on your KW Rock resources. It's either a 6 or 7 page document, and the very first page tells you when it's applicable, when it's not. Most of the time it's applicable. It's not applicable if it's an estate, if it's a foreclosure, if it's lot, land, or farm, if it's a sale due to bankruptcy or court order, if it is a commercial property, if it is a condo. There's one more. I don't remember it.
If it's new build.
It's always needed though for a single family dwelling. You need it. Unless it's an estate. Townhouse, you need it, condo, you don't. And this is so silly because nobody knows the difference in Rochester between condos and townhouses. So I always ask for it. If the seller doesn't have one, in New York City, the attorneys say never fill it out, give them the $500 credit. If the seller's agent says, nope, I don't have one, we'll give you a credit at closing, that is a huge red flag to me. Like they know something's wrong with this house and they don't want to disclose it. It scares me. Anyways, 5B. If the house is owner occupied, check 1 and 2. It's saying that it's disclosing that it's an owner occupied purchase. It's also disclosing that the seller has enough money to close on the house, so there's no lis pendens or foreclosure actions happening. Even though they sign it, it doesn't mean it's true. Crazy. This is when I want to insert something. It's so important to recommend to your buyers that they have a real estate attorney representing them when they purchase. Not the attorney who got their kids out of 17 parking tickets or out of a fine at the college dorm, not that attorney, a real estate attorney. There can be things that come up where attorneys are clueless and they don't know what to do. And I've been in the situation where the attorneys called me and said, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, you gotta do this, and this. Because they're not a real estate attorney. Who are our real estate attorneys around here? Talk to your mentors, see who they use. I have to tell you, David Dollinger just represented buyers for me. The seller was a realtor and used a local firm as their attorney who touted themselves as being real estate attorneys. Turns out the seller filed Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And with that type of bankruptcy that he filed, he had to pay back his creditors. Well, it turns out he owed $80,000 more to his creditors than he was netting from that. No, he was. Yeah, then he was netting from the house or something like, no, 30,000 more. He had 80,000 worth of debt and he was netting 30,000. He was short 30,000 to sell the house. So my buyers, mind you, we go through the final walkthrough. I look at this cute little buyer who I've sold a previous house to, and when I went back to list their house, they have little Anna running around who's gonna be 3. And I look at her at the walkthrough and I knew when I showed him how she didn't look like this. I go, do you have something to tell me? He said, yes, we're due for twins in January. We're having a little boy and a little girl. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Now this was a couple who like went through the whole process to have babies. I was so excited. I get in my car, the attorney calls me and says, we are not closing, we have a problem. We have, and he told me about these liens. And how did we just find this out? Well, the seller's attorney said that they would, don't worry about it. Because we have to worry about it. They did not close. They did not close. I sold their house and they were closing on their house in 6 weeks. They purchased non-contingent. So thank God they had 6 weeks. At the end of 6 weeks, the liens weren't straightened out because the seller's attorney didn't know what to do. David Dollinger stepped in, called the bankruptcy attorney, found out who the lien holders were, knew attorneys who represented the companies that put the liens on, negotiated for the seller, while the other attorney, the seller's attorney, did this. The seller and I are talking. He goes, I'll hire him to do it. I said, great, you're gonna owe him money. Was my attorney hasn't even called me back. I said, what can I say? Do you want to sell this house? Oh, by the way, your buyers have no place to live by next week. He said they can move in the house. He was gone. He moved to Utah. He was gone. Do you know Dave Dollinger closed that property and the seller's attorney had the nerve to show up at closing and say, congratulations, you got to the closing table. I wish I went to that closing. I wish I went to that closing.
We had our buyers fired his.
I
Fired
cannot
his,
believe. And, you know, I saw this attorney in an event and he's holding.
I'm
a
sorry.
cocktail. He goes, don't you love chocolate martinis? I said, yes. And I wanted a 2-bit chocolate. Anyways. Get yourselves real estate attorneys. This, I guess I'm inserting like the lighter side of real estate, even though it's not lighter. But can you imagine? I had to call that couple and say, guess what? You can't close on the house. They had ordered new wall-to-wall carpet. They had movers scheduled. They had painters scheduled. They had to cancel everything. And they did it so that they could do it all before they had to move with her expecting. So they moved in mid-December and she's due for the babies. Oh, I gotta call them. Anyways, C of O, certificate of occupancy, C, very usually not applicable for anything. I fill in number $0 in there. You would need a new C of O if the property is rented in certain towns or new construction. And if it's new construction, most likely you're not using this contract. You have the builder's contract. Zoning, zoned as a single family dwelling. All you have to put. The condition of property, this is where it says the property is being sold as is, except for normal wear and tear. The way you cover normal wear and tear is you make sure at the final walkthrough that the house looks like it did when your buyers walk through it and put the purchase offer. You don't want to walk in and find dining room fixtures torn from the ceilings, holes or stains in the carpet. You know, you expect reasonable use, reasonable wear and tear. Do not expect that the property is going to be vacant at your walkthrough because the sellers may be buying another house that they don't close on until that afternoon. So there may be box after box after box stacked up. Do you have any questions about that? Never, ever, ever waive a final walkthrough, ever, ever.
I have a question on zoning.
Sure.
You said, do it as a single family.
Mhm.
Do you have to put in like if it's residential or if it's in a mixed use
I don't.
area or commercial area?
No,
You just-
because they're only talking about the specific property.
Okay,
Mhm.
not the area.
That's
Okay,
how it's
yep.
being used
Okay.
as and I asked the attorney that question too. I'm like, well, what if it's an R2 zoning and it's a single family? He goes, what's it being used as?
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Services. This is your red flag, guys. What is it being serviced? Is there electric to the property? Is there fuel oil? Oh, red flag. My buyer has to reimburse my seller if there's fuel oil. So you need to,
Who's it?
Jeffrey, if there's fuel oil, if there's natural gas, if there's propane, public sewers, public water, septic system, well, or other, I'm seeing, solar panels. Is there, if there's solar panels on a house, ask if there's any type of rental or lease agreement on those solar panels.
The solar.
Big deal now, big deal. Or if there's a warranty.
New York State does reimburse you for the solar panels, so whatever, if you do get a lease
Mhm.
and you're paying the lease, you just take literally that and put it on your income taxes. And you pretty
And-
much get all of it back,
You do get it all back?
pretty much all of it, yeah.
Oh, wow,
Because the
I didn't know that.
The listing I just sold, she had solar panels and it was leased, because one of the people that was looking to purchase it said, well, can we just buy out the lease? And she said, you can, but it's gonna cost you more, and why would you if you're gonna, you know, depending on how long you're gonna live there, if you're gonna live there forever, yeah, sure, but you know, I would just lease it. Because you can, then she even sent us the form that she used to put on her
Oh,
taxes.
nice. Oh,
So
I didn't know that.
energy efficient. I guess.
So these tanks might be leased, like your propane tank. You need to know if it's leased or owned. If it is leased, your buyer has to set up a new contract, a new account with whoever owns the propane tank. If you are leasing a tank, you are obligated to buy your fuel from that company. So a lot of times buyers want to buy their own tank and then shop around. Pre-closing walkthrough, what did I just say? Never, ever, 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 ever waive it. I had an agent who was really snippy with me about the property not being vacant when she did the walkthrough. I go, there's nothing I could do. You know, she did the walkthrough the night before the closing. I said, it's full of boxes. She goes, well, I want to do another walkthrough right after the moving company comes. I said, that's fine. But don't my buyers call me and say, you're not going to believe this. I said, what happened? She said, the movers dropped their treadmill down the stairs, and she sent me a picture, and it was physically sticking out of the wall. And here I gave the agent a hard time. Properties are occupied all the time at walkthrough. I don't know why you're making such a big deal about this. Well,
Oops.
now I have to call that agent, and we have a little problem. I sent her a picture, she called, she goes, this is a joke, right? I said, no, I wish it was. We immediately had to get a drywaller over there and give an estimate as to how much it was gonna cost. Can you imagine? I wish I saved that picture. It was so. I thought they were kidding me. They were not. Closing always takes place in the count. I feel in the county where the property is. It's always taking at an attorney's office, whether it's the seller's attorney, the buyer's attorney, or a bank attorney. It doesn't necessarily take place at the Monroe County Clerk's office, but that's what it says. So you always fill in the county, and it's all up to the attorneys where the closing is. You have nothing to say about that. Your closing date is a target date. Target date. I say to my people, you know that red circle that is like, it's a target. It's make believe that you're gonna hit it. It's a target date. Don't schedule your movers. Don't change your RG&E. Don't do anything until you hear from your attorneys. Don't give up your lease. No, I gotta be out at the end of the month, so I gotta close. Well, good luck with that. Because guess who schedules the closing? There's 3 attorneys that have to coordinate. You have nothing to say about it. Your closing is usually 60 days, only because that's how long your mortgage commitment is good for, 60 days. Cash deals are closing in 30 days. I just had a mortgage commitment, a whole beginning to end with a full-blown mortgage close in 27 days. That was fast. Possession. You usually check number 1, buyer shall have possession at closing. Sometimes the seller wants a rent back. If you want a rent back, the standard cost is 1/30th of buyer's PITI per day. PITI is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's what the payment is. That's what your buyer's new mortgage payment is. To make offers more appealing, buyers are putting in 0, no rent. When you close on a house, let's say that you close on January 25th. At closing, you pay your mortgage payment from the 25th to the 31st of the month. January 25th through January 31st. February 1st, you do not have mortgage payment due. Your mortgage starts March 1st. Technically, you're always a month behind. This is why buyers are offering free rent backs. Because they don't have to pay anything. Now, if they close January 2nd and they just paid a full month, they still don't have a payment due February 1st, but obviously they just paid a full month. It's all about negotiating. I'm seeing buyers with cash deals paying all of the seller's closing costs. I'm seeing buyers pay the real estate commission, the survey, the abstract, the attorney fees up to a certain amount of money. I'm seeing some crazy stuff out there to get people's offer through. They got more money than, I don't know how many zeros, a lot. You can fill in an amount if you feel that you want a security deposit. If the house is a mess, I would definitely fill in a security deposit. If it's looks well kept and there's pride of ownership, I would fill in a low security deposit. Buyers have the right for early possession before closing. Oh, not gonna happen. I'm not even gonna talk about it. It's not gonna happen. No one's gonna let the buyers move in before closing. Too much risk to the seller. Title matters. I love this clause. Number 7. Right straight through to number 8. This is all the attorney's responsibility. FYI, you're a realtor. You're not an attorney. You're not an accountant. You're not a loan officer. You're not an engineer. You are a realtor. Stay within your licensure. Do not give tax advice. Do not give heating, roofing, plumbing advice. Don't talk about school districts. Don't talk about churches. Don't talk about neighborhood makeup. It's against the law. You guys all know that. But also stay within your licensure because it's also against the law. Talking about your furnace. You know what I say? Karen, how's the furnace look? Looks like the furnace. Looks new, shinier. They dusted it. Some furnaces I can tell, like if it says Williamson on it and it's aqua, that sucker's 30 years old. More, probably 40 now. But I can tell you what kind of furnace it is. I can tell you if it's a forced air, if it's a gravity, if it's a boiler. If you don't know that, Google it. You need to get out your MLS data input sheet. And if you don't know what every single item on that data input sheet is, Google it. So that you know when you walk into a house. I saw a YouTube video the other day. It was this little square box above, underneath a window in every basement. I'm thinking, and someone says, do you know what this is? I'm like, maybe it's an accessory heating. You open the box and it was a fire escape ladder. Never saw that in my life. No YouTube list.
So that real.
Did you see it? Did you know what it was when you saw it? Me either. I had no idea. I thought I knew everything. I'm kidding. I learn something new every day, guys. And if you call me with a question and I don't know, I'm gonna tell you, I have no idea. I'll try to find out for you, but you might try this avenue or that avenue or this avenue. Or call Chuck and he's gonna text me saying, why did you do this? I don't know either. Brokers, this will automatically fill in if you are writing the purchase offer. The parties agree that Karen Hilbert of Keller Williams brought about this deal. Responsibility, anybody who is buying the house has to sign the contract. Not later. It has to be signed when the offer goes in. Guess what? We're back into when all the attorney does all this stuff. And then we have every single addenda you can possibly use, which are attached here. Now, I'm just gonna tell you what these addenda are right now, just so you hear the words. Your agricultural district is an addenda. It should be in your package, but it's on a page with 3 other addenda. Ag district means there is farming or, well, any type of farming in the area of the property. Technically, if you read it, it says that the house is located within an ag district. But then it refers to odors and noise. I have never once had the smell of cow manure stop at a lot line. Ever. So if the house is in, if you see picket fences and you see cows, or you see horses, or you see windmills, or you see lots of flowers and barns, most likely it is within an agricultural district. It doesn't hurt to fill it out. Also, on that same form is electric availability, and that means that there's electric at the road. It's used for lots and lands and farms. The other 2 items on that same form is uncapped natural gas well. So when fracking was coming into the area, these gas companies came in from out of state and they went on farmers' land and offered them contracts to lease their land. And they started drilling for natural gas for fracking. When fracking was outlawed, they picked up and they left. They did not cap off these wells. These wells can be 6 feet around. Do not ever, ever walk vacant land alone. Especially in the spring when everything is overgrown and you're thinking, oh, nice, the wheat, I'm running through the wheat, and then boom, you're down in a hole. These things can be deep and they're big. Be careful. There was no law that they had to cap them. So, and the seller is supposed to disclose if there's any on the property. Utility surcharges, that has to do with maybe the properties are in a lake and the town decided to go all the way around the lake and put sewers in, but every single person who owned a house on that lake had to pay a bond towards that sewer. That's an example of a utility surcharge. All parties agreement, let's jump over to this one. FHA and VA, it's used for, the form states that if the property doesn't appraise out for purchase price, the seller doesn't have to lower the price or the buyer does not have to come up in price. And then what happens? Done, finished. Contingency addendum. There is a form in this packet. There can be any crazy type of contingency you can imagine. Some of them that I might want to bring up to you. Is the property in a flood zone? It could be subject to verification of what the flood insurance premium is. Is it a private drive? Is there a private drive agreement? How much is the private drive agreement? These are all contingencies. Is there a grant involved? Is there an easement for the neighbor to use the dock? Is there a right of way for waterfront? Tell you right now, when you start getting into waterfront, call somebody who has sold waterfront property. It can get pretty hairy with waterfront, especially if you're selling a property across the street and they're saying that you have deeded waterfront rights. You want to know what that means. Does that mean you can walk through? Does that mean you can put a dock? Does that mean you can put a hoist in the water? There's a lot to know. Home warranty, what I say before, every single person has to be offered a home warranty. Lead compliance, don't eat the paint. personal property agreement is a addendum where you can fill in for the sum of $1. That the refrigerator, stove, washer, dryer remains. Please do not get involved in selling expensive personal property. You start getting into, they're writing cash offers, they want to reduce the assessment, so they want the dock and the boat and all the furniture in the house. They write this crazy addendum for $100,000. Guess what? Somebody has to pay sales tax on that. It's like if you go to Macy's, your buyer has to pay sales tax on that. So think about it before you do it, because the attorneys sign a documentation at closing that says there's no other side agreements. Well, that's fraud to the government of sales tax. Careful with that. Do you or don't you want a property inspection? Is it rented property, and does the 1 to 4 unit addendum apply? And it's a 2-page addendum. The second page is Schedule A. The first page says that the contract is contingent upon your buyer reviewing the existing leases. So if you're doing an investment property, reach out to an agent who does investment. If your mentor doesn't do it, ask your mentor to find you someone who does. Is anybody getting in this business to be an investor? Or flip houses? Maybe. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. You might though, you might be working with investors, so you should know. Sale and transfer title, what did I say about this? Get help. Short sale approval. This is when the seller can sell the house, but if the house is in, if the seller owes more than the house sold for, the seller has to go to the bank and get short sale approval, because the bank is going to be shorted money at closing. That's the best way I can describe a short sale. It takes forever. So your seller can sign the contract. Yep, I'm selling my house to you, but you also have to put a clause in there subject to seller's lender's approval. They have to sign the contract too, because they've got something to say about the final price. When I see there's a listing that says short sale approval, I tell my buyers, if you want to look at the house and you want to pursue it, you're going to have to get another realtor, because I won't deal with it. I had a short sale take 3 years, and then at the closing table, it fell apart. It was the most agonizing. The seller was so deceitful, and I sold that house. I had 17 purchase offers on that house. I mean, that were accepted and moved forward, and then fell apart because of the seller. Anyways, not fun. Wayne County disclosure, what did we say about that? Get your iodine check. And well and septic. Now, if you do a well and septic, it's not your standard time frame for a property inspection. When you do a property inspection, you usually have it done within 7 days. Then the buyer has 3 days to ask the seller to complete any work they want done, and the seller has 3 days to agree to have the work done. With a well or septic, it takes longer than that. I usually ask for 20 to 25 days to have the inspection done. And then I go back to 3 days to get the report to the buyer. And then the buyer has 3 days to notify the seller that everything is okay. In the well testing, our forms state that they test for lead. Of course, you want the E. coli and all of your nitrates and nitrates, but now our forms state they are also testing for lead. So you need to know from a lab, how long is taking to get lead results back. And right now they're running 3 to 5 weeks. So your 20 days isn't going to make it. All right. I just say as long as it's done before closing. I can tell you this, if lead comes back high in a well, it's extremely expensive to put in the UV system and reverse osmosis system, because you need both to get rid of lead. People are also starting to test for radon in well water. And I have no idea what's involved in getting rid of radon.
Some lenders, I had a deal last year where we were buying a house that had a well. And they had, top of the line UV filtration. And we had the potable water checked everything. And lead came back before the filter.
Before the
Before
filter.
the filter, and he tested it after the filter.
Okay.
And the lender was like, well, lead came back, so we can't. It was the week before we were supposed to close. And they're like, well, we can't finance it because our bank won't do it. And they're not drinking the unfiltered water. It's all getting filtered.
Mhm.
So we had to get another lender in to save them and close in a week, which we did.
So here's the thing, if it's coming in after the filter. How many faucets does that filter service?
Right.
Like, is it just the kitchen faucet? That was my argument on one out in Seneca Lake. I go, the filter services every faucet in the house. What more do you want? And I was able to convince them to accept it. But you have to know, prove it. Can't prove it. How do I prove it? Here's the paperwork. It was before, it was right after the main. There was the filter. So
Yep.
that's how we proved it. Goodness, I gotta be a plumber now. But you know what I mean? You have to think this through logically, right?
Well,
Well,
then problem solve too. 'Cause if it's
Problem
not gonna
solve.
work, then gotta have
Right.
backups.
How do you know if you should be advising for a radon test? Like, how do you know which areas that makes sense?
there are certain areas where there's always radon.
Yeah.
If you buy something in Scottsville, it will always have radon. Mendon, high radon. Victor, high radon. Creek Street in Penfield, everything radon. Pockets of Arundequoit.
The EPA have a map. that
Yes.
you can look up?
Well, they have a map, it's incorrect.
Well, I
I'm
thought
sorry.
No.
So how do I know when to like have somebody? get
I
a
tell my
test?
buyers to research it.
I thought that there was a spot, I'll have to go back and look at it.
If there is, let me know.
I thought that there was a website where you could check certain radon levels and it'll tell you if they're higher or lower. Or you could also call, I used to be the ops manager at Warren Engineering, but you can probably call one of them and just say, could you tell me if there are high radon
Mhm.
levels or what the radon levels are in this particular area? They can't tell you if they did an inspection on anything, because that's, whatever,
I think it's supposed to be like
yeah,
the limit's 4.
yeah, it's 4. Anything 4 and above, you have to have remediation.
Right, anything 4.0 or above is considered high radon and it should be mediated. Interesting, in Canada, it's 10.
Well, and then I thought
Tennessee,
in the EPA thought that they also said if it were to cause effect, it wouldn't for a minimum of 2 years to 25 years. So you could live in a house with radon for 25 years and still be okay. So something that I've advised to buyers is to read that and talk it over. And then if you want to put in a mitigation system after you close,
mhm.
Yeah.
then we can get you quotes for it. But
I think it's a comfort level thing. I know if I go in a house and there's a radon system there, I'm like, yahoo.
yeah,
My
it's great.
buyer doesn't have to pay to put one in. That was misleading because I sold a house in Mendon. It was a relo. There was a radon mitigation system in the house. The relo company said, we don't care. We went another radon test. It came back high with the radon system in the house. And it ended up being that they had to put a commercial radon system for $3,800 into this house. Here's my guess. When they initially put the system in, the basement was not finished. And they probably took the test on the first floor. The basement was a full walkout. And that's where the test was done. And it came back skyrocketed. Another house I sold to my girlfriend on Victor Mendon Road, and she did a radon test when she bought it. It was like 0 point something. The new buyers did a radon test. It was 38. I go, whoa. They started a new construction site behind her house and all the ground started moving and all the gases and all the water started moving and she had to put a radon system in. So, advice. I always ask the engineering firm, when I would have my people at Warren Engineering, I would say, when I called to make the appointment, maybe I talked to you. I'd say, could you ask Mike or Doug or Jim, anybody? Can you ask them if it's an area where we should do a radon test? I would refer to the engineers. Now, I've had them come out and say, you're wasting your money here.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Well, and septic we talked about. Make sure when you do any other terms, like if you're putting in escalation clause, fill it in here. I always put a right of first refusal, which is in a standard, somewhat of a standard escalation clause. Ask your mentor about that. Please don't forget to fill in life of the offer, because if you don't, it's good forever. Property inspection, if it's declined. On here. You check this box, and again, you get the Keller Williams waiver, that's a requirement in office. Then you hope that this box up here is checked, that the seller accepts your offer. If not, you're gonna get a counter offer back or no response that they accepted another person's offer. But if you get a counter offer back, make sure you respond within the counter offer required time frame.
Another day.
Another date, another date. All of this has to be filled in. Most of it will auto-populate when you fill in your contract. I tend not to fill in my buyer's telephone and email address. I send the contract to the attorney and include it on that, but I don't know, I think it's kind of personal information that nobody needs. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do. This is a copy of an escalation clause, simply put. Your buyer offers the seller an increase in the purchase price against any other higher offer in increments of a dollar amount. It might be 1,000, it might be 5,000, maybe 2,000, maybe 10,000, up to a purchase price of, and that's the top number. How escalation clauses work is it's the bidding war back and forth and back and forth. One escalation clause makes another one go up, which makes the other one go up and makes the other one go up. It doesn't automatically go to the top number. If you win, the seller's agent has to give you a copy of the competing offer. You don't have to give that to the buyer, but you do need to send it to the attorneys. Right? I hope you all win on these when you write them. If you have anything else to say in the offer, if there's right of first refusal, so I'm starting to see some different things here, like, even though there is an escalation clause, buyer is open to a counter offer if seller's willing to counter higher than the escalation. That's interesting, isn't it? I've seen escalation clauses that have no cap. Like, okay, we'll go up to whatever. So I got one on one of my listings. I said, so you're telling me you'll go to like $3 million on this house?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I go, your proof of fund says, 250,000. Well, that's what we mean. Well, then write it. Don't be that person. Sorry. Just don't be that person. If you don't know, say you don't know, even if an agent from another company asks you a question, if you don't know, just say you don't know. If they're mean about it, they forgot that they were new ones. I feel sorry for them, but just admit you don't know, but you'll find out. Isn't that easier? Here's that contingency addendum. So some people like, just read it. There's all kinds, let's say you put in a cash offer, but you still want to do an appraisal to make sure it's worth what you're paying for it. It's not gonna go over so good, but I just thought I'd tell you. There's a private road, flood zone, if someone is assuming the mortgage, which doesn't really happen anymore. Post-settlement inspection, this is kind of important. What if the house needs a pool and your buyer wants a pool inspection and it's January? What are you gonna do? You can ask for a post-pool inspection, put the seller on the hook for some money. You can hold money back. Most sellers don't like it. Most listing agents don't like it, and most attorneys don't like it. But if there's no other offers on the house, that's the way it's gonna sell. Pools are expensive to fix.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Open that sucker up and the walls are caved in. That's not fun. I actually had that happen to buyers. They showed us a picture. They had a thing from Northeastern when they closed up the pool. It was in working order. They had pictures. They had video. Right, like the day before of their kid's birthday party. Look, here's how nice the pool is. Open the pool up, one whole wall had caved right in. And it was because there was a water leak from the house under the cement that pushed against the wall of the pool. What a shame. The insurance company covered it though. Oh. And then it was, a year before they could fix it during COVID. What a mess. COVID's like the worst 5-letter word we all know, right? Here's it for addendum. There's 4, how do I word this? 4 sections on 1 page. All parties agreement, this is the FHA VA, you have to fill in the purchase price right here. This is, the top is for FHA, the bottom is for VA. Every time I do a VA though, the bank has their own option clause, so I get this signed when I write the purchase offer, and then the bank gives me another one to have signed later.
I have a question on that
Sure.
FHA one. So let's say, can you have like up to that dollar amount if they do for
That'd be
lower, or
great.
it has to be the exact amount?
Exact amount.
Right.
So let's say it appraised out, you sold the house for 100,000 and appraised out for 98,000. If the buyer wants to come up in price, they can. If they have to pay the cash difference. If the seller wants to come down in price, they can. Now the new price is 98,000. You can negotiate it. It doesn't mean it's automatically dead. But how do you go to your buyer and say, oh, guess what? I sold you the house for 100,000, but the bank says it's only worth 98. So you want to pay 100? Probably not. So I usually call the listing agent before I even talk to my buyer about the appraisal. But it's kind of like my chart right now. They get the results the same time you do, so couldn't get that great news right away. Personal property again for $1. Property inspection. Look at all these things you can ask for. They don't have pool on here, but there's so many things you can ask for. You can just ask for a roof inspection and that's it. You can ask for a furnace inspection. You can ask for whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a full-blown property inspection. Do whatever you want. I usually do it within 5 calendar days. If it's a weekend, it's 7. Then I put in that they have 3 days to respond and 3 days to respond. So it's 5-3-3. Or 7-3-3 if it's a weekend. I hate to say or. Here's your inspection waiver. We will require it for you to get paid. This is the 2-page 1 to 4 family residential rented property. And what I was harping on was this wonderful page 2. Isn't this great to make your investor feel secure? This is a wonderful form. So impressed with forms. Takes so little. Sale and transfer of title. What do we do with this? Wayne County, we know about this. Here is the well and septic. You notice that there's a test for potability and a test for volume. And there's actual pumping and inspection. Now, I've gone so far, certain properties in certain areas, they have very loose standards for septic inspections. So I start crossing out the word recommendations because I know that the septic people in these locations are not thorough. So I say, I write right on, I cross out recommendations and I say all guidelines below to be followed. Because they'll like pump the tank and say, yeah, looks good, it's empty, fine, here's your inspection, $600. Not good. I'll be done in like 2 minutes, guys. I'm sorry I went over. Here's something you have to do every single time a contingency removed. Continue. Every single time a contingency is removed, here's a form to help you remove things like your engineer inspection, your chimney inspection, your flood zone, your mortgage contingency. All of these have to be removed. And guess what? Don't take the old form that you already removed one contingency on and put another, just go back and have them reinitial it. No, get a new one because it's a paper trail.
So this is what actually removes it, but you don't do this until after the attorney.
Which one is that?
The removal of contingencies, that we're saying about, like, don't forget to actually file the paper.
Right. Any of your removal contingencies. This is the one I'm looking at right now. This is a whole list of them. I don't know which, that one I think is for seller to find a single
Yes,
property,
that's
the one you just did.
Okay. The one that you just put down. With it. It's like this.
Oh, there, and I know what the form looks like from.
There's a removal of contingency and there's removal of conditional.
Conditional, if you want to ask for things to be completed, it's a conditional removal. Very different than this. This is when you ask for repairs to be done on a conditional. This covers kind of everything else. This is my mind jogger. I put this at the beginning of my paper folder that I use, and I put the dates next to it when everything has to be done. And then I transfer everything to my calendar. So a week before my mortgage is due, I put it in my calendar, so I check. Before my appraisal is due, I check. Like a week after I do mortgage application, I call my loan rep and I make sure it's done. Now, I'm to a point where I expect my loan rep to call me. She knows me well enough that if I'm calling her, she's like, oh, okay, what did I forget? Nothing, I just wanted to say happy birthday. But, you know, you get loan officers that good, they know how you work. They know that you don't want to be the only, you don't want to have to check on them that they're doing their job, put it that way. Like, I gotta call attorneys tomorrow and say, hey, how we doing with the title? Okay, get it done, it's closing next week. I know, just check it in, and I do it nicely until I have a reason not to be nice. Seller purchase contingency, this is what you just pulled up, like, this is a contingency, let's say I sell the house subject to the sellers finding suitable property. The sellers have to notify me in writing that they have found something. Now, that being said, if your buyer accepts a contract like that, you've got to make sure your dates work out. You don't want your buyer spending money on an engineer inspection or bank appraisal, and then the seller's agent coming back and say, oh, sorry, we didn't find a house. Now your buyer's out all that money. So you have to put in the contract that your buyer will go to the bank and have their inspection done after the seller removes that, unless the seller is willing to reimburse them those costs. So think through what you're asking is my advice. Think through if it was you, how would you feel if sure, I accepted that, but you didn't know the consequences. What are the consequences? I just gave that seller 30 days to find a house, and I missed out on all those houses that came up. It might be okay. Might not. I'm gonna say this with love. Buyers agents became concerned that their purchase offers were not being presented. So they were asking the agents, can you prove that my purchase offer would be presented? So that didn't get them anywhere. So they said, the board said, I'll help you. We'll make up a form that states that your purchase offer was presented, and we'll get it signed. Well, who's signing it? The listing agent. That's my answer. Right? It's like, if I trusted the listing agent to present the offer to begin with, I wouldn't need this form. So the person that should be signing this form is the sellers, not the listing agent. This form is a waste. Don't bother with it. Cancellation of contract. We hate to see these. We hate. But if your buyers sign a contract and they do an engineer inspection and it doesn't go well, they have to sign a cancellation to get their deposit back. If they sign a contract to put their deposit in and the attorney disapproves the contract, we have to get a cancellation of contract to get their money back. The minute there are a seller and buyer signatures on a contract, to get the buyer's money back, they have to sign a cancellation of contract. Even if they don't get approved for a mortgage, we still have to get it signed. If they wrote an offer subject to the sale of their house and they didn't sell their house, we still have to get this signed. They're not going to get their money back unless all parties agree. That makes sense. Oh, we got a blank form. This is just the standard operating procedures. The board came out with this and they said that each office, where's the right form? It's not here. Oh boy. So under attachments, under the little paper clip of the MLS, it will say if the seller has requested a pre-approval letter before showings and proof of identification before showing, Or if they just want a pre-approval letter at the purchase offer, or if they want identification at the purchase offer. Well, how I look at it is if you have a pre-approval letter at the purchase offer, they've got approved by the lender. So the lender has already given proof of identity, right? Because they need their license to have proof. If a buyer is willing to show me their bank account with their name on it, their address on it, I would think that that's the buyer. So there's proof of identity.